Kind of Funny Live 2 is happening May 28th and 29th. It's a 2-day event. The first day is going to be a completely ridiculous stage show. What we have planned this year completely blows last year out of the water. And I don't even know how that's possible because we were really stupid last year, and this year's somehow even stupider. Day 2, it's going to be full day of meet and greets. We're hanging out with all of us. A bunch of Rooster Teeth people are there. Funhouse people are there. Achievement Hunter. It's going to be a grand old time. There's going to be some games to play. There's going to be signings. It's exciting. It's a really fun time. There's going to be exclusive merch. Oh yeah, there's definitely going to be exclusive merch. Go to kindoffunny.com/tickets to get your tickets today. There's a couple VIP tickets still available, so make sure if you want one of those, you act fast. What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode 67 of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. As always, I'm your host, Tim Gettys, joined by the coolest dudes in video games, Colin Moriarty and Greg Miller.
Hi.
Greg Miller looking damn good.
That's what I do.
PS I Love You shirt.
You like that? Available at kindoffunny.com/store. Or you could just come get it off my body at Kind of Funny Live at kindoffunny.com/tickets.
Yep. There's a lot of ways you can do things. How you guys doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, thank you. Good.
I'm excited to play more Axiom Verge. I started on Vita finally. The cherry is broken. I'm no longer a Tom Happ virgin. He's been inside my eyeballs.
He's
penetrated
Tom
my
Happ's
eyes.
penetrated you?
Yeah. Good. That's good. So are you going to be playing that on your flight over to PAX East?
My PAX East flight will be Axiom Verge related since I've platinumed that they're severed.
That's exciting.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
Everybody. Yay, Platinum Club for Severed.
The coolest dudes in video games.
Yeah,
Freeze frame.
Pretty damn cool. What do you think of Severed before we get into everything?
Embargoed.
We're embargoed.
Really?
I mean, it's great.
Okay.
We'll talk more about it
by now.
No, it's not. I mean, it technically.
PS I Love You XOXO on Tuesday. Topic of the week will for sure be. Topic of the show will for sure be.
Okay.
But I do want to reiterate for people that don't listen to PS I Love You but listen to this show. Between Axiom Verge this week and Severed next week is a great chance to show Sony and the developers that you support the PlayStation Vita. Go buy these games.
Go to Vita Island.
Seriously, go buy them. Go buy them. Put your money where your mouth is and buy Axiom Verge and or Severed and show Sony that PlayStation Vita is still alive. We want more of these games. Show the devs that it's worth their time to bring their games over. These are two great games.
Yes, definitely. This show, every week we get together, we talk about video games and stuff. If you want it for free, you can go to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. If you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, get the show early, whole bunch of other goodies. It's a word Greg taught me.
It is. Goodies is a word that I taught. I said, Tim, do you want some of these goodies? And he closed his eyes and reached on in.
I did a weird mouth thing. And it was weird. They were good goodies though, Greg.
Yeah, they were great goodies.
You can get them over there on their Patreon. It'll be great. So getting right into it, I want to talk about this PlayStation Neo business. You guys had a whole discussion about it on PS
Twice.
I Love You.
Call it that, I guess.
It's been on PS I Love You. It's been on Colin and Greg Live. And every time we think we're done with it, another layer of the onion appears.
Oh, yeah. People have opinions on this, guys. I don't know if you knew about that. I tweeted out what the people out there thought, and there was a lot of responses. Overwhelming amount of responses, both on my Facebook and Twitter and everything. It's like people
have opinions about PlayStation 4.5.
Both sides. I'd say it's actually fair, at least from the representative sample of my people.
Yeah.
It was pretty 50-50 between this is fucking an abomination and the guys calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
So I understand that we at this table kind of differ on our thoughts on it. I am in the it's not that big a deal crowd.
I'm in the middle of the road. I want to know more about it. I want to see what this all nets out as, and I want to talk to developers who are working with it and what they think. I want to see how Sony sells it and what their thought process is. Because everybody talks about PlayStation Neo at the moment, because I don't understand why Sony would do this. What are they doing? Why would they do that? I'd like Sony to answer that question.
That's the thing. Sony hasn't officially said anything.
Correct.
So
if you somehow missed everything. Right, rumors of PlayStation 4.5 forever. Giant Bomb puts up a story that's incredibly detailed. Then Colin talks to one of his sources. There's a source over on Reddit now with his own thread. All these different things are happening in terms of what 4.5 is and what it means.
So Colin, you kind of came up with a list of salient points.
Yeah. So I mean, on PS I Love You, this news was fresh, and I was a little ranty as I often get. So it wasn't the most coherent. It was good conversation. I've gotten a lot of mostly. So, hundreds of tweets actually, people being like, thank you for sticking up for people that own PS4 already and people that play console games and all those kinds of things. Also some detractors and stuff like that. But I boiled it down in my mind to 5 points.
5 points.
We won't talk about
Well,
it all
Colin Moriarty's top 5 points about PlayStation 4.5.
But there's
Oh, you should have done 4.5 points.
Oh, doing good.
But there are 5 things. These are the 5 questions that I have, and the 5 things that I think people should be thinking about and talking about. It's what about the people that already own a PlayStation 4? That's the first thing that we have to talk about, right?
Continue to enjoy your PlayStation 4.
What about the expectations of the console space? That's a big one. The expectations of the console space going back to the mid 70s. What about the developers of games? That's a big one for me. What about splitting the PS4 ecosystem? So what about the ecosystem that already exists, a console that is already about, getting close to 40 million units sold, which is an extraordinary amount of units in 2.5 years. And then what is Sony thinking is the 5th question. And it's those 5 points that I think will answer one way or the other, no matter how you feel. I don't know that you really have to talk about anything outside of those 5 points to draw a conclusion about what PS 4.5 or PS2 4K or PS Neo, whatever they're going to call it, Neo being the internal name.
Code words.
And to me, this is a console that makes no sense in the way that the ecosystem has always worked. Consoles have always been weaker than their PC counterparts, their peers at the time. This goes back to the Apple II and to the IBM PC in 1981. I mean, this is not a new phenomenon. There were PCs in 85 and 86 way more powerful than the NES. There were PCs way more powerful, and Macs way more powerful in 1991, 1992 around the SNES and Genesis era. This is an ancient problem. Games like Doom ran on PCs much more sophisticated than games like our consoles like SNES, and Doom was ported and had to be really dumbed down to fit onto these things. So this is not a new phenomenon. The question I have is why? And the question I have is why now? And the question I have is what does this have to do with? And so I think that we can get into the conversations of all these things, and I have my some points.
Where do you want to start? I think the answer of why now, it's got to be related to VR. Correct?
I think so. I think that PSVR is the impetus for this. I don't think it's the only thing that's going to benefit from it. Clearly, 100%. It's not. But it seems like it's one of those things to me where the cart was put before the horse. Where it's like, okay, we have PSVR. There's not enough horsepower on the PS4 to run this thing with our vision moving forward. We can run maybe these launch games in these first year and a half games, but eventually we need more horsepower, and there's just not enough time for us to get the new console out. So how can we kind of market this to benefit everybody? And this is, I think, the solution they came up with. So I think that even though Sony hasn't said anything about it, and we'll see how they position it, the documentation that's been leaked that it apparently is maybe going to developers or publishers seems a little disingenuous because it doesn't talk about PSVR. It talks about the added horsepower that's being added to the console, but where's the evidence that we need that added horsepower in any of the games we're playing? That's the one question I have off the top. And I think one of the most salient points that we have to begin with, and one of the things that struck me first was, what about people that already own PlayStation 4, especially the people that recently bought one? And I think that this is something that's being overlooked time and time again. There are people tweeting at me and messaging me on Facebook and all these places. I just bought a PS4 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, yeah, that fucking sucks, dude, because you're not in the phone space where you expect, well, this is going to happen to you. You're actually in a space where you expect that this console is going to be good and solid for you for at least a few more years, maybe 5, 6, 7 years. And I think that's a reasonable thing.
I maintain the point that it will be good and solid for you for the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, but now they feel like they're getting the outdated product, and that's.
But I mean, that's the same. That's you say like that isn't something that's new. That isn't something that has changed. How many times have I just bought the PS3 and here's the PS3 Slim. I just did this. Here's this.
This is such a the Xbox 360 and the Elite isn't even.
These are terrible examples, guys. These are not consoles that run the games any differently. That's what I'm saying. Like, these are not steps up. That is the exact opposite. The PS3 Slim was designed to make the console cheaper. But like the Elite maybe not, but I guess so. When Xbox 360 started to iterate on this thing, it was to make the components cheaper and it's cheaper to go at retail. This is the exact opposite. This is a more powerful console.
Elite had better parts in it.
Internet.
And yeah, it had all that stuff too. It was a better console.
It didn't. There was no. If I put a single player whatever game on it, you would not be able to differentiate between the two consoles. It's the same thing with the PS3, the Slim, the Foreman Grill, and the Fat didn't run these games any differently. I do not buy this particular argument. I think that there's arguments that could be made, but that argument doesn't make any sense. There have been new console versions since the Atari 2600. There were 2 NESs, there were 2 SNESs, there were 3 Genesises, but they all ran the games the same.
Well, I mean,
and so I think
the point of this isn't a new rumor. 4.5 has been rumored longer than 2 weeks. This is how, I mean, you say it's a terrible argument. I don't agree. There's always another better, something's about to come out that's better in the video game space. People hit us up all the time. Is it okay to buy a Vita now? Are they not going to redesign that or something? And not again, horsepower, sure. But in terms of this, if you bought a PlayStation 4 2 weeks ago, congratulations. You still have an awesome PlayStation 4 that's going to play awesome games that look great and run well.
I guess. I mean, if I was, I'd feel jilted as shit, and I think a lot of people do out there, in the sense that, and I'm speaking for, I think people have been reaching out to me being like, thank you for speaking, like using your voice to speak for us, because like it seems like people are just excited about new tech, but in the console space, which might be a little more antiquated than say the PC space or the phone space in the way we do things, there is cause for concern, because not only is it about the 4.5, but now it's about like, is this just the way it's going to be now? Like consoles were about ubiquity. They were always about that. It was about there being the same console for everyone. We all play the game the same way. We might have different consoles, but the PS3 Slim and the launch PS3, unless you had like the 12 gigabyte one that couldn't even download patches or whatever, they ran the games the same. So I just see this as an apples and oranges kind of argument, because the innards are not different. No one in 2009 was like, the PS3 Slim runs your games better, makes your games look better. The Foreman Grill didn't come out and say like the games are there's more power and the games look better, and we'll have two different versions of the games now, and you have to go and developers have to go out and patch things. I just don't buy this particular argument. It is not the same, because no, it is not new to have redesigned consoles. It's new to have a redesigned console that's more expensive than the old console. I can't think of a single example of that ever happening. The Elite's different because
why?
Because Xbox 360, like with the Xbox 360. Yeah, they added, I guess, like some internet stuff or like some
Wi-Fi built in.
Yeah, like the Wi-Fi was built in, so you didn't have to have the hard drive thing is irrelevant too. You can buy. There were 3 different PS3 hard drives at the beginning. That doesn't run the game any differently. Like I don't understand this particular argument. So the Xbox Elite has a built-in Wi-Fi, which the original one you had to buy an extra component. That's not running the games differently. Like it's just not. Like I'm sorry, like that particular argument doesn't make any sense.
But the games run fine though. Like that's the thing. Though. It's not like the games are not going to work if you have a PS4. You know, it's not like the Nintendo, the 3DS and the new 3DS, where there's games that just straight up work better on the new 3DS compared to the normal 3DS, or some that are exclusive to the new 3DS and not the original 3DS.
Right, and then people look at games like Hyrule Warriors or something like that barely runs.
Yeah,
on the old 3DS.
But that's an issue with what that is, though. This is supposedly different. It's just enhanced versions. And the 3DS thing, they're building it for that new 3DS. Whereas they're building it for the PS4. The PS 4.5 stuff, that's just an option. That's just there. The questions I have, and I just don't know this, are, so what is the price that they're talking about?
They're saying the rumors were... Giant Bomb was saying that $399 was going to be the console price, and the original, I think the Wall Street Journal or Nikkei or something was saying $399 or $499, depending on the internals, which they, I guess at the time of publish, had not decided what their internals were going to be. My assumption is that it's going to be $399 because I don't know how you're going to sell a console that is even more expensive than the PS4 was. That to me is like a little weird. So I do think that they'll settle at the $400 price and then drop this other one, which PS4 is what, $349.99 right now. So you drop it down $299.
Yeah,
so you have to drop it to $199. I mean, like you have to have a big differentiation between these consoles at this point.
So
is it $249.99 base unit and then bundles are $299?
I don't think it's $249.
Okay. It's been a while.
Maybe I don't.
I can do it. I'm on it. I got the device in my hand.
We're just assuming that this is a new thing, or it's going to be the Neo or the 4.5 or whatever. What if this just is the PlayStation 4?
Because they say that the documentation, as far as the leaks are concerned, saying that the two consoles will split. Will say like will be side by side, and they'll continue to sell them. But this particular argument, Tim, and you can appreciate this, reminds me a lot of Nintendo's 3-pillar strategy in the early 2000s when they were like, we're going to have the GBA and the DS and the GameCube side by side. And what we quickly saw with that was that the Game Boy Advance was obsolete and was removed. And Game Boy Advance actually was I thought a fantastic system that disappeared very quickly because the DS was just a better unit. So they had some anticipation that the GBA would last in maybe 05, 06, 07, and it did, I guess, in some respect, last until 05 or so, but it was gone. I mean, the GBA's prime time was 3 years, and the DS's prime time really was still going until last year or 2 years ago. So it's like where there were still kind of new and unique games being released for it. So they stretched it out, but I feel like Nintendo's move at the DS move was premature because the GBA was still, and I think this is a great example, is the GBA still had life in it and it was still fun to play and it was still, God, I fucking love the Game Boy Advance. And
$350 right now, sorry.
$350, yeah, I thought that's what it was. So it's to me, it's a great example of like, well, Nintendo had something great with the DS and it sold very well and I enjoyed it. I remember I told a story, I think on PS I Love You or something, or Colin and Greg, where I was like, I didn't believe it until I played it and I was like, this is great. But they didn't have to kill the GBA like that. And this is kind of like, there was no imperative for them to do that. The GBA actually was quite successful. So I look at the PS4, which is even more successful, the most successful PlayStation device ever so far, life to date within its life cycle. And to me, I look at it and I'm like, but why? Like, but why? You know, like, why are you doing this? And that goes to the question number 5. Like, this seems like premature. This seems to me to be a half measure. This seems to me to be something where it's like, if you just wait a couple years, you could really just get away with releasing the next PlayStation.
Now, have you
and
seen
be
these
done.
stories today, though, of the Shuhei Yoshida?
We did. We talked about it on. Now, I don't know. We know Shuhei Yoshida very well. And
This is the Lauren Lanning comment.
exactly. So Lauren Lanning was saying how Shuhei Yoshida told him that at some point that like it's not a question of when, but if, with the PlayStation 5, when it will come out, if it will come out. So, but knowing Shuhei Yoshida, I'm not so sure you can read too much into that. He's very closed. You know, he keeps things close
He's
to
very
the vest.
clear, yeah, that things haven't been
He's
announced or
very
unofficial.
skilled about avoiding answering questions. I've joked many times that I've never broken him. I've broken a lot of people, you know, and gotten a lot of information I probably shouldn't have from people in interviews, and he's impossible to break. So I don't read too much into that. I think PlayStation 5 is obviously going to happen. I think maybe when Lauren talked to him at some point, maybe that wasn't the case, but I think they would be foolish not to do that. But I think that like they could have just made the case in 2018 at E3. This is the PlayStation 5, and it's going to come out this fall. And we know that the PS4 came out 5 years ago. It's backwards compatible with the PS4, but we want to move on to the next hardware and have this more powerful thing. Instead, it's like a half measure, and now we have to wonder like, how often is this going to happen? Can you reliably buy hardware? And I know that this isn't a problem for PC gamers, and this is a thing in the phone space, but in the console space, this isn't really the way business is done. And so Sony's either being very forward-thinking, which is possible. They've been very forward-thinking so far. I think they're very forward-thinking with PSVR. I think they've been very forward-thinking with the way they treated gamers with PlayStation 4. Or this is an unforced error. Or it's just something that's just whatever. But I just don't know how it could be whatever. I really do think that it has to be one or the other. You know, like...
I definitely, I'm in the whatever camp. I think that it, from Sony themselves, I think that this is a move where the idea of people knowing what console cycles means, that almost doesn't matter. Like things are changing. Like we're at a different time. So what consoles were then is not what they are now. And I don't buy the phone argument either. Like that, it just doesn't make sense. But at the same time, it's like things could totally change. And what we think of as getting the consoles every, before it was 5 years, then it's closer to 10 years. It's like that changed, you know, so why can't it be sooner than that? And like, why can't it be half steps? And it's never going to be quite like, I don't want to say never, but I don't ever see a place where it is like a PC where it's, you can upgrade at any time. You can get a faster CPU, or you can get a better graphics card. You're not going to get pieces
Every 3 months, there's something that's better than that was. Yeah.
This is like, I mean, it's been a couple years. It's not like it was just yesterday that this thing happened. Also, with the rumors of Microsoft doing it and the NX coming out, it's like that. This is a way to, like, with all the rumors of the NX being more powerful than PS4, whether or not that ends up,
I hope it is
the case.
You know, like it's been 3 years at the point that comes out.
But that's things like that. This is something for Sony to kind of have to point to and just be like, well, there is this that does this. And I just don't think that, I honestly think that the PS 4.5 or whatever isn't going to be that big of a deal on the positive side for the people that want it. I think that
Agreed.
Sony can't allow it to. It's similar to the Kinect. People aren't going to make Kinect games because only so many people have Kinect. Same thing with Move. I think this is the same thing where it's like, they're going to make the games for the PS4 users. And the other shit, it's always going to be an afterthought. And it's always just going to be it is better, but it reminds me of the Xbox, GameCube, PS2 era where the Xbox games looked better. Who the fuck cared? Everyone played it on PS2 or GameCube for Link, you know?
I wanted to, I just couldn't find it.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think it's that type of thing where it's like, it's being blown out of proportion now because A, we don't know anything official.
Exactly.
And B, it's just like, you know, it's easy to look at this as a bad thing. I totally understand where people are coming from. I understand the idea of like, shit, I just bought this thing. Like, that sucks that there's no way I can convince my mom to buy another of the exact same thing that I just got. But this isn't for those people. Like, I think that those people are going to be totally fine. And it's something for them to get mad about if they want to. But I think that they're going to get what they bought. And that experience is going to be awesome for them. The crazy tech people that need the newest things, I'm one of those people. I look at this, I'm going, fuck, I have a PlayStation 4. Like, I don't want to have to buy this thing. That sucks. But if I really want it, I'll figure out a way. I'll sell it. Like, I will sell it, make enough money, and yeah, probably have to pay a bit more to get the new one, but I'm getting something out of it. It's not like it's just a fair trade if they release a new thing and I'm like, oh, I deserve that one. You know, I bought this one. I've had years of entertainment with it. And that's the people that bought it 2 weeks ago, they had 2 years to buy it.
Yeah, I just, to me, again, it goes back to expectations. It goes back to, I'm glad that you deal with that you agree with the phone issue specifically. And I know some people are like, well, it's no different than phones. It's way different than phones. For 15 years, we've been subsidized. Our phones have been subsidized and not outright paid for. Talk to me in 5 years now that subsidies are going away and see how often you reiterate on your phone now that you have to pay $500 or $600 for it, which most of us haven't been doing, by the way.
But I mean, that's still not true though, because like the phones are still subsidized. Like if you do it right with the phones, you are still getting your phone for about $200.
I mean, I'm still getting mine, but a lot of people are telling me that a lot of this stuff's going away
they're
now.
doing it wrong. I mean,
but it doesn't matter, Tim. The point, and you're making my point. The point is that like we live in a subsidized, we live in a subsidized place with phones where it's like everyone's like, well, I get a new phone every 18 months, but I'm like, you're not paying for it. Like Sony's not subsidizing anything. So yeah, we might have this situation with a phone which does way more, and it's a way more dynamic machine than a gaming console. And to me, it's like, okay, that argument doesn't live up to it. If we were all paying $500 or $600 or $700 for our phones, we would not be iterating like this. And I guarantee you that the phone companies would not be releasing their phones as much as they are. They're getting fucking hundreds of millions of dollars from phone companies to do this, to keep people active on their networks and all these kinds of things. So it's a totally different thing. I think the PC gaming thing is way more apt. And this is as far as a comparison and where you can like kind of get into like, well, PCs are way more modular and we update them or whatever. But to me, it's like, if Sony wanted to do this isn't something they just pulled out of their ass, like a month ago or even a year ago. They knew they were going to do this, and they should have just made the PS4 modular. And at that point, I wonder where did this was this always the plan? Because people are now digging up old comments and old quotes from people being like, the PS4 you play on now is the PS4 everyone plays on, and like all these kinds of things, and why it's so easy to develop for, and we'll get into that in a minute. But to me, it seems like it's just not the way we do things in the console space. And to me, it's either like I have to reimagine the way the console space is, and then and which is fine. I don't control or have any right to dictate the console space. I'm just giving my opinion on it. Some people will agree, some people won't. But then it makes me wonder, like, if this is the way we're doing things, then like, why am I even playing on a console anymore? Because like console gaming was supposed to be easy. Console gaming was supposed to be predictable. Console gaming was supposed to be ubiquitous. And now we're going to have basically haves and have-nots and different tiers of gamers. And now you're going to see, I can't wait to start seeing videos at E3 and all this kind of stuff where it's going to say running on Neo in the corner and all those kinds of things, and we're never going to see the PS4 version. It reminds me a lot of like where PS4 and Xbox One games come out. One of them's running at 920 or whatever. One of them's running at 1080, and it's going to be a similar thing now within the PlayStation ecosystem. Now, like, there's going to be games that are running at 1080, there's going to be running at 720. Dude, a lot. I mean, come on.
I know
Tim.
people care.
A lot of people are going to care.
People are going to be angry about it, but really, what does it change? What does it matter when we're talking about the resolution thing?
I mean, I don't care about resolution, but whenever I say that to Greg, and Greg will know, I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck a game's running at half the time. I don't care.
But that's my point, though. Like, my point is,
I'm not the normal person.
People are gonna like this. It's an internet angry thing of people gonna be upset about this stuff, and yeah, people care. Like, but I'm saying that it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. People saying that this is like suicide for Sony to do. It's like,
I don't think it's suicide because they have such a great lead. The question is like, I certainly don't think it's suicidal by any respect. I just wonder if it's an unnecessary roadblock, if it's stymieing, if it's splitting focus, they already have PSVR to worry about. Now they have this other thing to worry about and the original console. It's just weird. And like this fall, if it comes out, so for people that are not familiar, like, the documentation indicates that games that come out in October or later must have Neo capability. And they must run on Neo in some respect. I don't know, better frame rate, improved frame rate, whatever, better resolution. There can be no special features. So, and Neo can't have like things that the other one doesn't have in terms of core features, but Neo could have like 8-player split screen when the other one has 4-player split screen or whatever. Theoretically or whatever it is. So it's like, there's according to the documentation. So all these like kind of Byzantine rules that I don't really quite understand yet.
Well, they're there because of what you were talking about, to keep the ubiquity of the PSN together.
Right.
The ubiquity of you are playing on a PlayStation 4 no matter the resolution.
But the point that I think is being lost in this documentation, assuming that it's real, and who knows, Sony again still hasn't said anything about it, and I'm sure they're kind of still figuring out their message and crafting their message. I don't think they anticipated that this was going to happen. I don't know how you couldn't anticipate that this was going to leak, but to me, it's like, well, dude, the special features is the game runs and looks better. Like, that is the special feature. That is the special component of the game. If that's your marketing, if that's like the marketing idea and the way we avoid our problems all the time, you're going to be in for a lot of trouble, because that's not going to fly with a lot of people. The special feature of game X on Neo is that it looks better and it runs better. And that's just unheard of in the console space. You usually have those kinds of things within different consoles. The Wii version looks like shit. The PS3 version looks okay. The Xbox 360 version looks great. Or the Xbox One version runs at this, but the PS4 version runs at this. But now you're gonna have the Xbox One version runs at this, the PS4 runs at this, and the Neo runs at this. But this whole thing is supposed to be the same on this side. This whole PS4 kind of thing is supposed to be the same. So Is it like kind of like a sky is falling thing? I suppose. Is it a little bit hyperbolic? I suppose. This is like my guttural reaction to this because this is just not the way the business is conducted. And I fear.
But things change, to quote the Penguin in Batman.
Things do change. But the question is like, things usually change for a reason. And console gaming is strong right now.
But I think there's a reason. We're at a place now where everyone has computers. Like whether or not it's a great computer, like a gaming computer or not, it's not like back in the day when you needed a beast ass machine to be able to play games. Whatever you buy from Best Buy, you can play some games on it, and that aren't just Minesweeper. You can play real games on it, and that your tablets are computers, your phones are computers. It's like everything is so technologically advanced, and the entryway for people to have technology is so low now, where it's like people just have stuff. Like on my phone, I'm playing games that look amazing, that look like console games, and it's like everything's all mismatched and weird. And I think that it's like we're at a place where people can wrap their head around tech in a different way. Upgrading machines and upgrading things and different tiers of stuff. Like Apple has taught people that there's this version, then there's this version. And like people can wrap their head around that. And the thing with the phones that I don't agree with is the subsidized thing, because like that's like people expecting to be able to trade in the PS4 for the new one. Like that doesn't make any sense.
No, Sony's never going to do that.
But the thing that I do agree with the phone stuff is like the iPhone 6 or the iPhone 6S. That is a perfectly apt thing with what this is. Consoles haven't done that before, but with phones, it's not like the craziest thing ever. Like it was weird in the beginning when they first started doing it. Everyone's just like, fuck, well, I have a 6. That means I don't get a 6S. That sucks. You don't need it though. It does have a nicer camera. It does have nicer things. It has nicer features, but you don't need them. Your 6 is fine. The 6S is just a better version of the 6. And I think it's the exact same thing. When you look at the iPads with the Retina display stuff, and this is my worry, is I have the Retina iPad, and there's so many apps that aren't optimized for it because people are optimizing for what most people have, which is the PS4. So I worry that the PS4.5 is going to the premium stuff is going to be so limited that it's not even going to matter to the users that want it to. That's the bigger issue.
I'm trying to go through my notes here to make sure we're not skipping anything. I want to say that this to me reminds me most of I'm trying to think of times like you talked about the PS2 hard drive, which I think is like a minor thing. I think the bigger thing is the N6 because it's like it made the
games better.
It didn't make the games better. It made the games run faster and run better. They loaded quicker.
Special features. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Like, I guess. I mean, like, and maybe that's an apt thing, but to me, like the hard drive was like, I don't even remember anyone really caring about it compared to like and I could be wrong, but like I don't remember that being a big thing. I think more about the expansion pack with the N64, which gave the N64 boosted memory, and there were late N64 games like Majora's Mask that needed it to run. But to me, it's like that was a cheap component. The N64 was designed from the beginning. It was obvious there was a slot for it from the very beginning in 1996, and it also came with a big game too. So like, which I think was Donkey Kong. Mm-hmm. So they were already trying to get it out there by being like, well, just buy the game and here it is. I think the bigger kind of weirdness that you find is maybe you have to go back to the Genesis and go to like 32X and all these weird things that they were trying to do towards the end of the Genesis life cycle to extract more power out of it while they were working on Saturn. And I think that didn't work out too well for them. So we don't really have a great comparison to see how this works, but we do have some anecdotal evidence or some historical evidence to figure out what this might look like when you start having like, well, this game's on Genesis and this game's on 32X. And there was another one, wasn't there?
CD.
Yeah, then Sega CD. And I'm like, oh.
But see, the problem there is like you needed those for those experiences. And like, I like that so far, at least this is all saying that it's like, no, it's everyone's getting the same games, and the limiting the special features or whatever wording they used. Like that's the saving grace for this. Because if it was the new 3DS situation, that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. And again, I want to reiterate because it's important. We're kind of just spitballing because we don't have.
They haven't talked, and
I don't know that they're going to. I mean, I don't know
you
that.
Think they'll wait till E3 at this point?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I wouldn't, but I don't.
You are going to continue to kick the beehive every week on PS I Love You.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if there's nothing new to say, there's nothing new to say. I mean, I'm fine saying this and moving on with my life. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a fucking video game, but or a video game console. But to me, the one thing that I think is that's being lost, or people aren't thinking about, and this is where my conjecture of the things that I'm talking about are coming from, is the point of view of developers. Mm-hmm. The very fact is, easy or hard, simple or difficult, however it is, when you add something like this in, it is going to require extra planning. It is going to require extra QA, extra certification, extra production, extra money, and extra time. And this is something that has to be accounted for. It's indisputable. Like, you can't dispute that. So,
100%.
so like, whether or not, like, people, the source that I talked to indicated to me, a well-connected source, and I think you would indicate or think that the source is a well-connected in the know person.
Sure.
Indicated to me that the people this source had spoken to, both within and outside of his own development circle, was not impressed, not happy that they have to deal with this thing, whether or not it's minor.
Exactly.
And that it's just something else that they have to think about. They have to budget for it with time and production and money. It's not just flipping a switch. People can say that if that's what they want, but it's not true. Whether or not they make PC games or not, and you have to make your PC games a little more modular, a little more flexible for different graphics cards and all these kinds of things, that still does take production.
100%.
And the game has to go through certification now for both of those.
Yep.
As far as we
there's going to
understand.
be problems that you don't see with one version that you see with the other. Over on NeoGaf, because I know you have your quote on Twitter, or not quote even, your statement
My
on
boiled
Twitter
down
about your
statement,
source. Risk Bearer over on NeoGaf had put this up, and I'm going to read it at length, but it'll get to the point of, like, it starts off here like this doesn't matter, but then gets to exactly what you're talking about. You guys do know that console games in development actually can have graphic settings in a menu taken from the PC version or in a debug menu that you can change, right? Developer effort will come more in the sense that they have to keep the different performance budgets in mind. Meaning if you need to keep, let's say, your polygon budget under 30 million for the PS4/Xbox One version, you make a graphic setting around that. Then the PS4K would have an undefined number. You would add props, details, change LOD, which I don't know what that is, to use the PS4K's extra power. It's no different from doing different graphic settings on the PC. They'll probably make a baseline, a whole bunch of tech shit. It's not very different from what happens with multi-platform games. Extra platforms always mean extra hours in compliance, QA, and builds though. But games won't be or shouldn't be any worse for it. But it's exactly your point, that talking about, like, there's more to look out for now. There is more things. And I think that your source being like, this, it's not, like, this is the worst thing in the world. It's like, another fucking hurdle to get through, another thing to check on the box, another thing to test.
No, and I know that some people were, confused by some of the verbiage in my brief tweet, and I'm not tweeting this as a journalist. I'm just tweeting it being like, isn't this an interesting little kind of thing that I heard from someone that I can absolutely trust? And it's, of course, the source being Portillo, a well-connected game developer. But to me, it was just putting it out there being like, this is what I heard. This person I trust 100% and would absolutely know. And does this source speak for everyone when he says most? No, but he's talking about his circle of people he knows, and you can kind of garner information from that. It's just same as political polling. When you say, like, oh, Bernie Sanders has 36% of, the vote or whatever, they didn't talk to everyone who's voting. Yeah, like you garner that information. So it's just anecdotal. Take it if you want and leave it if you want. It's not meant to be this scholarly pursuit with 5 different sources. It was me putting out some information that I thought people would find interesting, and I think they did. But it goes back to the point, and I want to make sure I'm not missing it here, where it's like the console developers specifically, or developers that are more comfortable working on console, which are many, they're just used to one box, right? Or 2 boxes, Xbox One and PS4. And now they have to worry about a third one. And it might not be a major thing for them, or maybe it's another month of production or something like that, but it's a thing they have to budget for. This is going to cost them money. This is going to cost them time. And this is going to cost them headaches and dollars to fucking donuts. I bet you a game I bet you a game gets delayed because of this at some point. I bet you that a game just straight up doesn't run right on one of those, and they have to patch it. Now they have to worry about patching games twice. Now they have to worry about, like, there's a lot.
Patches being put through cert cost money.
Exactly. Like, these things cost actual dollars. Like, you don't send something to Sony and be like, can you just look at this? Like, they pay them to do that. So it's to go on, to go on the store or whatever. And to your point about, like, well, if this is the big conundrum. This is the same conundrum with Vita. This is the same conundrum with Wii U. It's the same conundrum with everything, where it's like, okay, so they ignore the Neo, which is really not, according to the documentation, isn't really allowed. The games have to run in both of those. They can't just say, like, the PS4, according to the documentation, the way I'm reading it, the PS4 game, they can't just ignore it.
Well, I'm not saying ignore. I'm saying, like, not focus on.
But what I'm saying is, like, if they don't focus on it, then there's no reason for this to ever happen to begin with. If the developers don't want to do this, and maybe they do or maybe they don't, then you have to wonder, like, who is this happening for? Because if developers don't want to take advantage of it, then who's going to buy it? And then the Neo people are going to be pissed. And this is like the whole other side of the coin, where it's like, okay, so the PS4 people are all happy as pigs in shit now because the games look exactly the same, and then the Neo people are like, what the fuck?
No, that's 100% jumping to the middle of the road statement I kept making on podcast PS I Love You XO, and what's the other one? Colin Greg Live, is the fact that like what I want them to say in that statement about what this does is makes games load faster, makes this happen, When they're just like improved frame rate, sharper visuals or whatever, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna get that. Doesn't do it for me. That's not what's gonna move my needle to get me over. If they do come out and they're like, it's gonna make PlayStation VR run better, it'll look better in your headset, your games will load 3 times as fast or whatever, twice as fast, half as fast. Okay, cool. Now you've got my attention. Now I'm excited for it.
Yeah, to me, it's just an ironic kind of thing to think about from an analytical point of view of the haves and have-nots that we were talking about, like the have-nots being the PS4 users, the haves being the Neo users. But what if it's the other way? What if the people are just like, fuck this shit, and the Neo games, like except for first-party games, which are obviously going to take advantage of it, or the games that are patched or whatever. Like the way the documentation says is like games that come out in September have to be patched. Games that run in October come out in October have to run natively out of the box in this thing. So this is just the thing. People might be learning about this the last few months and being like, fucking shit, like we need more time now. Like we were talking about crunch, I think the last episode or one of these episodes.
Yeah.
And how catastrophic that is. I just look at this and I'm like, this seems like a bit nightmarish. Even if it's just 5% more work or 2% more work over a 3-year cycle or a 4-year cycle, this is something that really has to be considered. And I don't think we're like appreciating enough how much of a pain in the ass this is going to be for devs. And the source that I talked to indicated that it very much is going to be that for them and for the people that source spoke to. So it's just something worth noting that maybe some devs of course some devs are gonna be happy about it. I'm sure devs want more horsepower.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure people are gonna want the newest, coolest things, and they want their shit to look better. It's like me with video stuff. Knowing there's a better camera than the one we're shooting on drives me fucking nuts. I want the better one, but I'll deal with this shit.
It's not, but it's not shit. It looks great.
No, I know, but that's when that is exactly it. It does.
Tim's kind of making the point though, right? Like better. That. Because no one has to buy anything, but I understand what people are saying where they're like, I have to buy this new thing. Now they feel like as hardcore PlayStation fans, like this is what they do. This is how they buy in. And
that's a bad place to be. Don't do that as a reformed hardcore Sega kid. That's a fucking stupid thing to do. I guess,
but we are that though. Like, or at least I am.
Like I buy to. If you don't want these things, don't get it.
I suppose, but I all I'm saying is like I like because people are saying like, well, if you were against it, then why are you going to buy it? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of in the catch-22 where it's like I kind of need to be able to be authoritative about it. So like, I'm curious about it. I'm going to buy it when it comes out day one. I'll pre-order it. But I understand why people are upset, and sometimes you can't speak from your own perspective. Sometimes you have to speak from other people's perspectives and understand where they're coming from. And this is not a hard one to figure out. So, but to me, like there is a situation where I do think that the early adopters that made this thing possible, that made the PS4 success possible, that made the talk of Neo even possible at all, that the PS4 didn't fucking fall off a cliff and die, are looking at this being like, what the fuck?
I think there's a segment of them, I think there's a segment like me that doesn't feel that way and doesn't care.
But I just think that like those people should be listened to and those people should be heard. And I think they have a legitimate qualm based on the history of PlayStation consoles and based on the history of the way gaming consoles are done generally. And I think that this is treated more like the PS1, the PS2 era. And PS1 really only existed for 5 years. And that was fine. The PS2 came out and made it look like fucking trash. And I would have been really interested to see in 2018, 2019 if the PS5 came out and just made this thing look like trash, but was backwards compatible. So you had like a more ubiquitous console, a PlayStation network that can play these games, something that they didn't think about or didn't want to do with PS3 to PS4 because there was some money to be made in software sales and HD and collections.
And the fact that the PS3, PSN sucked.
But the final thing I want to think about, and if you guys can add anything in here, and I'm sorry to dominate the conversation, it's just that I wrote these notes, so I thought that would be interesting, is how are they going to market this thing and how are they going to show it?
Question,
and
man.
this is the burning question, right?
Yeah.
This is, how do you show the PlayStation Neo running a game without showing how much better it looks than what everyone already has, right? And that is going to be a marketing problem for them. Because at E3 they show God of War and it's running on Neo. Well, it looks great. What does it look like on the other console? And you're going to show it side by side and make your other shit look fucking obsolete? You're going to piss off millions of people doing that? Like, this is where the unforced error thing comes in, where I'm like, you guys have so much to worry about this fall already with PSVR. Maybe this wasn't the smartest idea, assuming that it's coming out in October. And I don't see why, according to the documentation, it wouldn't come out in October. Why would the games need to be ready at that point?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Why is that the cutoff? Then?
Exactly.
So fast?
So unless it's like November and they want everything ready to go, and blah, 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 I don't know. They have to go through certification. So it's like, this is a big thing. This is the thing I'm most morbidly curious about is how do they budget it? Like budget the time to talk about this thing, still give love to the PS4, make the Neo look like something you need to do or need to have without making the PS4 look obsolete. And it's like that. And this is the big question I have. Is like, the thing is that Sony's making the PS4 obsolete, or at least look like it, and no one else really felt that way. Everyone's like, I was excited. I often talked about, like, think about in a few more years what they're going to be able to do with this console. And I always use the example of Resistance to Resistance 3, of Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, and The Last of Us. These are the same teams running the same hardware, using the same tool set, getting games that look drastically better than the originals on the same PS3. And I wanted to see like what Last of Us 2 would have looked like. And we're going to. But like, to me, it's like, that seems to me to be like, let's just give developers some more time and some more space. The console space was never about technological advancements like the PC space was, or the phone space, or the tablet space. It was about like, this is what we have. We're excited to have it, or we're not so excited to have it. And the games run on this for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and then we move on. And so I just am curious how you like position this. Sony can be absolutely brilliant here. Some people are saying this is the Sony mistake we've been waiting for 3 years. I don't know. The one thing I feel, and I said on PS I Love You, is that I hope I'm dead fucking wrong about this. I hope I'm totally wrong. I hope I'm fucking totally wrong. And this is awesome, and everyone loves it, and all these kinds of things. I just can't wrap my head around it.
See, I think you're saying some things in there, that it's never been about a technological advancement, right? And clearly this year and what Sony's been doing is about that with PlayStation VR. This is supposed to be their big advancement. Shoes says they're treating it like a console launch. It is a game changer for them. You know what I mean? And I see from what we're hearing right now about this Neo unit, my prediction is it's going to be very much like the PlayStation VR unit, where it is, hey, here's this thing for if you're super hardcore into PlayStation, here's this avenue for you to get something that's a little bit better, a market increase. That's not insane, whatever. But if you want to have the best VR experience, you're one day going to need this, and you're going to have to do this, and you're going to have to start adding on all these different things. And it is, things change as we continue to talk about. And this is, they have to, their step in terms of like, this is the new world they foresee that they're laying out. And if it's the right world or the wrong world, we'll find out really quickly. But what's interesting, I mean, I feel so about it, and you kept saying it on PS I Love You, and we got not argument, but we're talking in heated fashion or whatever. We keep saying, well, now everybody who's using the PlayStation 4 gets the shittier version. And it's like, fucking spoiler alert, everyone. Every game that isn't exclusive to the PlayStation has always been the shittier version. How much did we love how The Witcher 3 fucking looked on PS4? Beautiful game, amazing vistas. Oh my God, it's so great. And you look at it on PC and you're like, fuck, that's amazing. But we all said we like PlayStation and we like trophies and we like this, so that's why we do this, and that's why we're settling or taking the inferior version or whatever. And now there's this PlayStation 4.5. There's now this Neo that will maybe make it look better. And again, I think it's going to be a jump that's much more of a hop. That PlayStation 4 looks good. That looks really nice. That looks good. It's like I mean, for me, and this is kind of a shitty comparison because I didn't sit down and do them side by side. But it's kind of like when I saw Last of Us running on PlayStation 4, right, as the thing, and I was like, oh yeah, it looks good. Like, yeah, it looks, frame rate seems better. It's faster. It's smoother. Whatever. I didn't sit there and go, man, this makes PS3 Last of Us look like garbage. No, it looked like up-res PlayStation. You know what I mean? That's what I expected to be in terms of quality, in terms of clarity. If you've been happy with your PlayStation 4 experience and how games have looked, I just don't understand all of a sudden being like, now this thing is trash. It's garbage. And I got fucked because I had an unwritten contract with them that for 10 years, this would be the only PlayStation 4. You're still going to be able to play with everybody on Neo. You're still going to be able to do all this stuff. You're still going to have the same games. Yep. Frame rate might not be as good. Yep. Picture might not be as quality. I just don't. If that's what I cared about when I fucking cared about video games, I would own a PC and I wouldn't be on any PlayStation podcast.
But think about, I mean, to your point, because you're right, but think about it from a different perspective, which is not the perspective of the people that own PS4, but the perspective of just a general obvious question is, if it's not that big of a difference, then why the fuck is this happening at all? Like I
assume to make way for PlayStation VR and get this underlings and do this and be ready to build on that. But I'm with you on that. Don't get me wrong. I want Sony to answer the fucking question of what the fucking point is.
We'll see, but I think in terms of the marketing stuff, like I'm interested to see if it is as big of a deal as it sounds like, or if it's going to be something more like I think, which is just, this is just the new PlayStation 4. The pillar thing, like whatever the documentation says, to me, this just sounds like this is the Slim. This is the new PlayStation 4. And if that's the case, then I think all this is going to go out the window.
If they sledgehammer the price on PlayStation 4 and they say we're going to move the stock and stuff.
And not so much that it's like, just doing a price cut and they live simultaneously. Even if they did, it's just more like the Neo is the PlayStation 4 going forward. And it's like the advancements it gets is loading times. And yeah, the frame rates might be better in certain things. It'll probably just be the AAA exclusive titles that get that. All the third party stuff will probably just be minor, like loading's faster.
I mean, third party stuff, I would feel, and this is again, who the fuck knows? I think would be the most easy to do, because it would be that you have PC and you have your PC high functioning, whatever skill tree they call it. And then you have your baseline graphics and you have your shitty things. And if you can have those sliders, you have to be able to feel like, well, where does Neo fit into one of these sliders? And then if it's as easy to do when you bring that over, who the fuck knows?
I think this is going to end up being the Slim of this generation. What the Slim and the Elite means in 2016. I think it's going to be that. And I'm going to be very interested if I'm wrong and if it is two very different machines that are
just
pushing
like
forward.
PlayStation VR, man, I'm super fascinated now to get these out, for VR to come out and see how people respond to it, but what the sales are like, how much people use it, what a month and a half reaction to PlayStation VR is, where we net out with it. And same thing here of just like, how are you going to market this? How are you going to sell this? How are you going to show it? What are you going to say about this? And when are you going to say about it?
And I think the other thing too is like I think that even pillared or not or whatever, I think that like making a big deal out of this new thing, like that's marketing. Talking, even if you're saying the other thing's not as good, it's still great. Like that's, as much as that shits on it, at the end of the day, the pros are going to outweigh the cons for them, and they're going to sell a lot more Neos because they're making it sound like the hot new thing. And more people are going to be like, fuck, I need the new thing, compared to the people that are complaining.
And that's what I kept talking about. I mean, like the base business answer to why are they doing this is to sell Colin and me and you and whoever else a PlayStation Neo that would buy one. We wouldn't have bought a PlayStation 4 this year. Suddenly we are buying a PlayStation 4 this year. And the person who was on the fence to buy a PlayStation 4 this year maybe is going to buy this now that it's settled. And that's kind of like when you're waiting for the price drop or you're waiting for the redesign. When it finally happens, so many people are like, all right, now I'll go pull the trigger.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, but just remember that to the point, good point, salient points. This is the first console, quote unquote, redesign that's more expensive than the console that's on the market.
Luxury
And
item.
that's
So
We'll
it's
the Elite was more expensive too.
Sure, but the Elite, I just don't buy this.
What's different about it, man?
The Elite was just a new Xbox 360 redesign with a modem in it, like, or with a wireless card in it.
And it was black, and it had a black controller, and it was more money. Like, that's the thing. It was a redesign. Like, that's all it was. It was a luxury redesign.
And how much was the Elite compared to the original Xbox 360?
I think it was like 150 more. 100 or 150 more.
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't recall either.
But I do remember seeing that and going, man, that's a fucking good looking system. I wish I had that. But don't care because it still runs my games.
Yeah, but Alfredo cared. And Alfredo upgraded.
Sure. No, totally. That's,
You know?
and that's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
But
You know what I
We
mean.
will see how this all nets out.
We will, Portillo.
It's one of those things I really hope I'm wrong about. I hope it does great. 'Cause Sony,
I don't care. Yeah, it's
I care because Sony's doing great with PlayStation 4 and it's a great console and they really revived and proved everyone wrong with consoles.
But if they fuck it up, we get back to having just the core fans. Remember when we used to have there were no bandwagon people and we got to sit around and talk about trophies and pat upon and everybody knew what we were talking about.
yeah.
Now it's all these fucking kids with their Call of Duty exclusive nuke towns. Get out!
I was going to read a bunch of tweets and Facebook posts from people. I think we discussed this enough, but I do want to read one from Andy Cortez.
Oh no.
Who says...
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Rooster Teeth, Andy
Rooster
Cortez?
Teeth, Andy from Rooster Teeth, yeah. I tweeted out, I was like, what do you guys think of this PS Neo business? And he responds, I'm going to try to sell my PS4 to some loser that doesn't keep up with gaming news. And then immediately replied again, adding Nick Scarpino. Hey, Nick, are you in the market for a PS4?
Damn, Andy, good job.
Oh, so that's amazing. All right.